Hello and welcome to the Dead Air Dudes. I'm Izzy.
I'm Rocka, and you are Deader Dudes Nation. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and keeping us going. And thank you for joining us today.
Welcome back to another exciting and daunting episode of the Dead Air Dudes podcast. This time we are concentrating on somewhat of the paranormal in quotations, and namely in particular Ed and Lorraine Warren, the stars of the Conjuring universe and demonologists, paranormal hunters, explorers extraordinaire. Now, many people may take offense to this, and some may not take offense to it, but we are here to bring some facts to light on how the Warrens, the, you know, how you want to put it, Rocco?
Exposed.
Yes, they're full of shit. Okay.
Pretty much. Before we get going, though, what are we drinking today?
A little H2O, but in the meantime, I will crack open a bottle. So, with that, we'll have Rocca begin on the humble beginnings of one and Lorraine Warren.
As I pop this Dogfish Head Low Cal IPA, get in focus. Dogfish Head. Yeah, low calorie because, gotta be responsible. Gotta be responsible. All right, so Ed and Lorraine Warren, both, I believe, born early 1930s.
Yeah.
There is no degree for demonology. There's no school, there's no certificate handed out, but these are self-professed demonologists.
Well, technically, Ed was born August 23rd. Actually, sorry, September 7th, 1926. While Lorraine, January 31st, 1927. And Ed was a demonologist, while Lorraine was clairvoyant and psychic. Now, like Barker was saying, I am partaking in a little bourbon action, in particular Angel's Envy. Okay? Now, it is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey finished in port wine barrels. 86.6 proof. Okay? One of the better ones I have in my collection. And it is wonderful, as our boy E would say. Now, back to what we were saying. Yeah. So supposedly Ed was he was raised in a haunted house. So as a young kid, he bared witness to a lot of things in his, supposedly so. And he is a self-proclaimed, demonologist. Now what's demonology say? I guess study demons. Much. Now
Again, there's no here's the problem. There's no vetting process.
no, because they were before them who did this for them. They were the ones who actually brought it to the attention, brought it to the limelight with all their more famous, you know, um, hauntings and everything. In particular, you have Annabelle, then you have the Amityville Horror, the Haunting in Connecticut, and so on and so forth. Small Family Haunting, the Demon Murder Trial, They'll Maybe Do It, the Parent Family Haunting, the Union Cemetery, Stepney Cemetery, Borley Church, and so on and so forth. To the point where they actually created
Society.
Society for Psychic Research. Okay?
Okay, so So in 1952, they founded the New England Society for Psych Research. They claim to investigate over 10,000 cases. Um,
1,000 cases.
shall we start with the Amityville Horror?
You know what? Let's start with one of the granddaddies of them all. And before we get in, please like, comment, and subscribe to this.
Yes, and a big shout out and thanks to all of our listeners, especially those, of course, all over the great USA, but we have listeners from all over the world, and we are humbled and appreciative. One day when everything is open again, hopefully we can have more public gatherings and events, dead or due events. But until that day, we are here still discussing these very, very interesting topics. So, Amityville Horror.
Cheers.
There's an actual murder that took place. Murders in the home, which is the center of everything in Amityville.
November 13th, 1974, in the small town of Amityville. 4 of the 5 children were killed, as well as the mother and father. Ronald DeFeo Jr. calmly went into his parents' bedroom and shot them dead. And then he continued to go around the house and kill the rest of his family. He claimed that he wasn't there when the murders happened. Okay? And he killed everyone execution style. Face down, shot in the back of their heads. Okay? He claimed that he discovered the bodies of his parents prior to arriving at a local bar. Okay? Police found a gun case for a 35 caliber rifle in DeFeo's room. At that point, DeFeo confessed. Okay? Now, DeFeo was found guilty, obviously, after a pretty long trial and sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. Okay? Now, there was never a solid explanation on how one person acted alone and can take the lives of 6 family members at 3:15 in the morning, and no one heard the shots. Now, this is what we're going to do here. We're going to give the facts as the Warrens know it, and then we're going to give the quote-unquote real facts of what happened. And then we'll let you guys decide. Well, actually, it's been decided already, but, let you guys be the judge of what's going on, right?
I mean, okay, so that happened in November 13, 1974. December 1975, roughly a year later, George and Kathy Lutz move into the house with their 3 children. And within that month of December, they experience what they call supernatural, paranormal, otherworldly events, occurrences, and whatnot. They call in Ed and Lorraine Warren to substantiate, to check out the house, to perform exorcisms, which, by the way, Ed claims that he can do.
Yeah, well, he claims a lot of things. Now, it wasn't just normal things going on, right? For the very first night, they felt strange sensations. They saw an unseen force. They ripped doors and hinges, slammed cabinets. Supposedly green slime oozed from the ceilings. a biblical scale swarm of insects attacked the family. And supposedly they would see demonic faces, glowing red eyes, looking into the house, leaving footprints, cloven hoofed footprints in the snow. Okay, supposedly a priest went and he was driven back with painful blisters on his hands. And then he was told to get out, you
Now,
know?
has any priest come forward to substantiate these claims?
Well, that's where it gets, that's where it gets kind of,
Very gray.
because what ends up happening is, well, first, let's get into the television crew shows up with, and they did a segment on the house, which in Ed and Lorraine Warren are involved. Okay, I mean, and they all, I suppose, and it was only them. It was other alleged psychics. They all agreed that there was demonic spirit in the house, you know, and that an exorcism is going to be needed. Now, at this point, the Lutzes left the house. Okay, and here is where they collaborated on the book, The Amityville Horror, with them.
There's always a book, isn't there?
Of course. And the writer, Anson, he vouched that the thing was true and was, you know, happened. And Jay Anson said, you know what, this happened. I vouch for it, and you know, whatever. So there is, quote, there is simply too much independent corroboration of their narrative to support the speculation that the Lutzes either imagined or fabricated these events, end quote. Okay. Now, there's a researcher, Rick Moran. He compiled a list of more than 100 factual errors and discrepancies between Jay Anson's, quote, true story and the actual truth. Okay? Now, you know, you get into this gray area of what, you know, actually happened and what didn't happen. According to the Warrens, you know, it goes deeper and deeper on how they believe that DeFeo was the house that drove him to murder people, which in turn was the whole sinister thing behind the hauntings of the Lutzes and the murder. So, 20 days after the Lutzes fled, that's when the Warrens showed up. Okay. Now, here is where you have the actual things, what Ed and Lorraine said meant that actually happened. Ed was pushed to the floor and he used religious provocation. Now, religious provocation, if you guys don't know, probably do know, is basically, you know, holding religious artifacts and, you know, crosses and holy water and get out and, you know, the power of Christ compels you and all that good stuff. Okay. And Lorraine was so overwhelmed by the sense of demonic presence and that she was plagued by psychic impressions of the failed families, bodies laid on the floor covered in white sheets, and a sense of physically being pushed back. Now, they also captured an image of a spirit that appeared as a little boy appearing from the second floor. Now, here it gets a little deeper. Supposedly on the land where the house was built, it was found to be used by John Ketchum. John Ketchum was a practicing black magician who had a cottage on the land prior to the construction of the Dutch colonial in 1924. He requested that his remains be buried on that property, and they remained there until this day, supposedly. Okay, here we go. And then you always need an Indian burial ground here too as well. So the Shinnecock Indians also one time had an enclosure on this land that was used to house the sick and the mad and those who died. Oh, I'm sorry, those who were there were left to die. Okay. The Warrens believed that the suffering there had left the property with a very negative energy and dark history, and that such a negative history was a magnet for demonic spirits and the preternatural. And if we go on and on, the Warrens believed that these energies directly impacted the lives of both the DeFeos and the Lutzes. The Warrens retrieved a handful of the Lutz possessions and deed for the property. The Lutz sold the rest of the belongings and relocated to California. So, what do you got?
Well, if we fast forward, there's a lot of talk back and forth. There's the book that's written. There's the clairvoyants all coming in. There's different accounts spoke in the book. There are a number of inaccuracies, multiple renditions of the book, many different editions, delete certain events, change names. There's lawsuits filed against people mentioned in the book, things that they claim never happened. For example, since the police came to the house, no record has shown that they called the police at all.
Yeah. Now,
the line is when you get to May of 1977, George and Kathy Lutz filed a lawsuit against many people. The defense lawyer for DeFeo, a writer on the book, Paul Hoffman, Bernard Burton and Frederick Mars, both alleged clairvoyants, Good Housekeeping magazine, a whole bunch of stuff. When you trickle it all down, the end product is a quote by William Weber, the defense lawyer, that says the book is a hoax. We created the story over many bottles of wine.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, look at some the discrepancies that were blatant. First of all, when they interviewed the priest, he said he never saw anything in the house. Okay, the priest of Father Pecoraro. Okay, the priest was supposedly driven from the house by demons. Nothing ever happened. Another thing, the Lutzes could not have found demonic hoof prints in the snow because it did not snow. They said that there was extensive damage to the home's decor and hardware, meaning the cabinets and the doors. All the original locks, doorknobs, and hinges were untouched. Okay. And in the book and the film, they showed the police being called to the house. But within the 28-day siege, the Lutz family did not call the cops, not one time. Now, if there's a biblical swarm of insects attacking the house every single day, and you see demonic entities glowing red eyeballs, wouldn't you call the cops? I'm just out of curiosity.
And if there's any icing to the cake, there's multiple owners since then.
Yeah.
None of the owners have reported anything remotely paranormal. So many people benefited monetarily from making a fantastic story out of pretty much a tailor-made situation. You had a horrible murder happen. You have a move-in family 13 months later, a year later, who claims this happened. They said get out, weird things are happening, biblical stuff happening. It's tailor-made sensationalism, and you bank on it. So that's Amityville.
Yeah, and the Lutzes should be freaking, they got paid so much money for this, for the book, for everything, and of course, Now, if you're the Warrens, how do you even say that this was real? How do you?
You piggyback the whole thing. There's that classic picture, right, where the kid with the glowing eyes.
Yes.
But many photographers have claimed that happens. Reflection of the eyeball, that happens all the time. That's not demon possession of a child. That's that's where they made their claim, and then it just rolled after that. Now, how about Annabelle? This predates that, right?
Yeah, Annabelle. Dude, this was in seven. This was in December '75. While Annabelle was 1968, 1970.
Now, it preceded Amityville by a lot, but it didn't have the same kind of hype.
But the thing with Annabelle is like, all right, first of all, and mind you, for me, I've seen Annabelle in video and in pictures. And if if any of the stories, if any of the events or things that the Warrens have gone through, the one that I might actually believe more than any of them would be Annabelle, because there's no real way to disprove it unless you have some information that I don't have. But quickly, I mean, we'll glaze over it. Everyone who's seen the movie knows the story. You know, 70, my mother purchased an antique Raggedy Ann doll from a hobby store, birthday present to her daughter, Donna. Donna was going to graduate from college with a nursing degree. She had a tiny apartment with her roommate, Angie. Within days, both Donna and Angie noticed that there appeared to be something very strange and creepy about the doll. Now, the doll would move from place to place. They would put it in one area, the doll would move. They put it somewhere else, the doll would move. They had a mutual male friend came over, and he would, get scratches supposedly from the doll or whatever. And the doll was really creepy, you know. So
Raggedy Ann doll.
sometimes the doll would be found with legs crossed, sometimes arms folded, sometimes standing upright. Sometimes, would leave on the couch and they would come back and she'd be chilling on the bed with the door closed. So now, supposedly they would um, they would find letters written by Annabelle saying, "Help us, help Lou," and it seemed that the letters were written by a child. Okay, now Donna mentioned that she never had any parchment paper, so where did the parchment paper come from? Okay. Now they go deeper into someone called Annabelle Higgins, which they go deeper into supposedly during it's not it was the spirit of a girl, yet it was the spirit of a demon within the Annabelle doll. And that's essentially the story of Annabelle. Now,
Well, there's one little tidbit I came across which was really quite interesting. That there was a Twilight Zone episode,
ho, ho, ho.
maybe many years before this. I can't say exactly. But there was a Twilight Zone episode about a doll that was possessed or the embodiment of some spirit or something like that. And Izzy, $4,000. Do you know what the name of the doll in the Twilight Zone episode is?
Was it Annabelle?
That's right. The name of the doll is Annabelle.
Shocking, Rocco.
Not a far-fetched idea, is it?
You know what?
Coincidence?
That deserves a drink.
Not. So right then and there, you have a possibly contrived story, or what they call, projection. You may have watched the story, you may have watched the episode, it's sunk in, it's terrified you, and then years later you have a doll. Remember, the doll was called something else. I forget the original name of the doll, but in their investigation, they said, oh, the doll, the entity that lives in the doll is really Annabelle Higgins. Whoa, how original. So then the Warrens take this doll back, and what? They put it up in the museum or something.
Well, yeah, actually, it's pretty quite creepy. I've seen, I'm just gonna interject one thing of that I've seen recently. I actually seen in their um, occult museum. I saw a video, and it was a priest. I forgot to mention his name, and we did mention this video in one of our early episodes. They actually showed this paranormal investigative team the cult museum. So as soon as the actual museum, which is like kind of the basement and under a long hallway, the hallway is full of like something akin to Halloween time in Party City. Okay, full of skulls and clowns and all kinds of demonic things. Well, inside it has kind of a lot of legitimate pieces, but also a lot of like stuff you would see at freaking Halloween Town. So the priest, and this is no joke, he goes, and they're like, oh, was Annabelle, whatever, and he flicks the light on. Music comes on, like if you're starting a ride, an amusement park ride or something, and the Annabelle doll starts glowing, has like lighting on, like it's in a glass case, it's Raggedy Ann doll, and it starts glowing like it's on like a pedestal. It's almost like, really, come on.
Is the music something like this? It's your birthday.
No, that would be awesome. No, it was more of like your typical freaking something on.
Sounded like Jaws for a minute there.
So, I mean, we can go on and say what the Warrens did, and
Well, the one last thing I'll leave with the Annabelle is one of the last accounts that a visitor to the museum said was that he asked Ed about the doll. And Ed said, oh, the last person that touched the doll or made fun of the doll or something like that died of a motorcycle accident. No one can find the name of this guy.
well, there were two stories like that. One
Here we go.
was that supposedly the guy, it was a guy and a girl, a guy and his girlfriend, I do believe, and yeah, on a motorcycle, and he was like, you know what, you ain't nothing, whatever, and yeah, they got into an accident in a motorcycle. Another time, a priest threw the door, and supposedly he nearly got into a head-on collision. Again, you know. But here we go. Yeah, here we go. This is what it is. Here, I'm reading it right now. Okay. It no longer appeared to move, but she's thought to be responsible for the death of a young man who came to the museum on a motorcycle with his girlfriend. Okay. The young man, after hearing Ed's account of the doll, defiantly went up and began to bang on the case, insisting that if the doll could put scratches on people, then he also wanted to be scratched. Ed said to the young man, son, you need to leave, and put him out of the building. On the way home, the young man and his girlfriend were laughing and making fun of the doll when he lost control of his motorcycle and went head-on to a tree. The young man was killed instantly, but his girlfriend survived and was hospitalized for over a year. Something like Return of the Living Dead. When asked what happened, the young woman explained that they were laughing about the dog when they lost control of the motorcycle. Ed warns you, do not challenge evil, that no man is more powerful than Satan.
I mean, chilling, and I agree with that warning. But as a clairvoyant and a paranormal investigator, he loses a lot of credibility when we get to the next case, which is the famed Enfield poltergeist. And for that, we travel across the pond to sunny old North London, the suburb of Enfield, a hotbed of poltergeist activity, which later will be the subject for The Conjuring 2, I believe. Now, this was a very interesting story about a family who claims poltergeist, paranormal activity, possession, levitating, and then not the Dua Lipa way, uh, um, pictures to corroborate.
Mm-hmm.
Brought in the priest and everything you could think of. But you know what? Let's put icing on the cake. And since the great coverage of Amityville, let's bring in the Warrens. The Warrens come in, they talk to the family, they do their investigations, and they say never before have they been hit with such an array of different paranormal activity. There's so much happening here. It's crazy. It's out of control. Meanwhile, years later, the book is written. They cash in on the book. Photographs are taken. A lot of very disturbing claims.
Go with that.
I believe they even hire a ghostwriter to help write with the book. And he's a famed ghostwriter. And the ghostwriter goes on to interview the family, interview the events, trying to get his own thing together. The ghostwriter, through his interviews, comes back to Ed and says, you know what? This family's all screwed up from top to bottom. I'm not sure if their stories all match. I'm not sure if they're credible. They have alcohol abuse, family abuse, psychological issues, you name it, up and down. And he has a reputational hold. So he's asking Ed, what do I do here? And Ed says to him, basically, filter out the best stories. Whatever doesn't fit, make it up. Make it sound good.
Wow.
So if there isn't enough proof, you're talking about a writer who has some writing integrity, that doesn't want to just slap up some crap and put it together, but he is contracted to, and he puts this out. So here's another person, and I'm trying to fish out his name, who flat out calls him a fraud. Now, do you have more to add on the Enberg poltergeist?
I have a couple of quick tidbits, and obviously we're gonna end with the latest, hoax.
Conjuring 3, which, by the way, Izzy has been nice enough to put out a quickie movie review on. And please hit us with the tidbits.
Before that, there was in 1974 there was a haunting or a poltergeist, the Lindy Street poltergeist in Bridgeport, Connecticut, almost in the backyard of where Ed was from, and they received a call from a fellow psychic, a friend of theirs, Mary Pasquarella, okay? And she swore up and down that there was a real poltergeist, and it was actually 966 Lindy Street, right? And when they got there was a mass of people, and there was the police were there. Supposedly, the police went to the house, and they were pelted with plates and and knives, and they saw the the, the lazy boy chair freaking open up and close, and the refrigerators were moving freaking 40, like freaking 10 feet, and all kinds of stuff. So, and in Lorraine, they go and interview. I do believe they were the family called the Goodens. I do believe. Okay, so they go and they interview the family, which is part of what they always did, and they interviewed the cops and they interviewed the firemen and everyone according to the Warrens. And I heard some of the, the, the recordings. You know, they said that this and that. That it was very odd what happened, this and that. So, armed with all this information, they go to church and they ask for an exorcism, you know, and the church is like, wait a second, according to and this is something that Ed for a while fights, that many, at least early on the cases that he was on, that he brought to the church was like, no. He claims that they don't want the public to know what really is going on out there. The appearance of demons and ghosts and goblins and things that go bump in the night. But all right, Lorraine went upstairs and she felt a terrible sensation. So, long story short, they go and they try to get an exorcism done. Okay. Now, they also had a priest who his name. Let me see if I can get his name correct. Father William Charbonneau. Okay. He did a house blessing, and he had an assistant from the seminary who named the but supposedly stayed with their daughter, and he was fearful for the daughter that something that would happen. And he stayed with the daughter while Ed took Lorraine back home. He was attacked by a wall of bones as he pushed back and pushed back. He was afraid that the entity was going to attack the kid and took the kid away. Long story short, the police superintendent Joseph Walsh called the whole thing a hoax, and that Mrs. Gooden made all the shit up, and that it was all BS. Coincidentally, no exorcism and no disturbance ever happened again.
And of course, again, the icing on the cake is years later. I think only now in the 2015, I believe, whatever, the two girls dressed up.
Mm-hmm.
They dressed up and said they made the whole thing up.
Yeah.
So
one thing we need to stress to all you guys out there. This was the 60s, the 70s, and things. You can fake a lot of things, have a lot more back then than you can now. You don't have the burden of proof. You don't have technology to really disprove things. You could just say something, and someone be like, "Oh shoot, yeah, that moved by itself. So yeah, oh, that's got to be a ghost." I can't explain it, so therefore, boom. And of course, we get to the Conjuring House, Harrisonville, Rhode Island, 1971, a little before. Of course, we all know the Conjuring. One of the pretty good movie actually. Supposedly started with the family moved in. We all know the whole thing of everything happened. Supposedly, when the Warrens show up, they check the house out. They want to do a séance. To do a séance, supposedly, when they do the séance, The wife gets possessed, according to sources. The husband gets mad at Ed Warren and decks him. And that's it. They left. End of the movie. That's it. They leave. Swears that it was still haunted. He wanted exorcism. Nothing ever happened. He got decked, and that was it. That's the Conjuring.
And I'm sorry, I confused the other story with the Ghost Rider. It's really this. It was the Ghost Rider here for the Snedeker house. The Ghost Rider here is Ray Carton. So just keep in mind. So what I mentioned before was not from the other. It is applicable to the haunting in Connecticut with the Ghost Rider.
Yes.
Ray Garton.
The Snedeker house is the haunting in Connecticut.
Yeah, and said that the family's involved in a lot of crap. They're formed. So everything I said about the other one is really for this instance. Sorry for confusing the two. And here is where the writer Ray Garton um, could not accurately relay the whole.
Well, somebody whipped up a pretty good script for it because hey, like I said, I kind of like the movie. I kind of like it. So.
I mean, you're talking about a very serious charge that happened, and it snowballs into fortune. How many books have they sold? How many interviews have they made? Appearances? Yeah, 10,000 investigations. You can't tell me that they come over for free.
No, I mean it's.
But what it has given us in the horror world are some pretty good movies.
No, they have.
A lot of food for thought, a lot of fright, a lot of scares, and if anything, entertainment.
We can also go the Swirl family, or what we call the succubus exorcism. Okay? West Pittston, Pennsylvania, 1986. Okay? The Swirl family, supposedly after one of the daughters' confirmation, crazy things started happening. Okay? Now, before you know what a succubus is, a succubus is a creature or a demon that sexually um, attacks the male. Okay? Here, Ed Warren said he was attacked by a succubus at this point. So,
We there's a few other things to get into that we'll mention, but since there's a lack of hard evidence, we'll just leave it out as for your own investigation. There claims to have been uh, a lady who was underage at the time who met Ed Warren, who had relations with Ed Warren, and being underage, that is a crime.
so yeah, like Rocco said, this is.
I mean, there's a lot of hearsay, so you can see that isn't
jump
something
up for us. This is,
because of underage. I'm not going, and of course, the person is now come of age, but I won't mention names due to some respect. But um, said individual also has been mentioned as helping out in some fudged footage, specifically a white lady in a cemetery. Um, there's a whole lot of other rumors involved, which I won't get into because sometimes I don't entertain rumors because they're just rumors. But there's, for good or bad or whatever motivation, there's a lot of hearsay, mudslinging, and accusations. Sure, in the small psychic world that was coming of age at the time, maybe there's a lot of jealousy, a lot of, pole positioning. I get that. And I get that at the end of the day, these guys have a business. You know, Here's the thing that most hardcore people would understand. If you're a true practitioner of witchcraft, demonology, if you're a warlock, if you're of the dark spells and arts, material gain, fame, fortune means nothing to you.
Yeah.
In fact, the real evil lurks in the darkness. They don't want fame and shadows. They can't get as much done. So there's that aspect.
Behind the scenes and control it that way.
Here's another thing, and we did an early episode in our Deader Dudes timeline about exorcisms, specifically the Catholic Church's policy, conducts, what they deem to be real exorcisms, real demonic possessions, all this case. So there's a very tight scrutiny of what qualifies and why and who gets involved and everything. Most times there are no lay people involved except trained psychologists, psychiatrists to help evaluate whether this is a true demonic uh, possession or not. Not a book writer, not Ed and Warren. Hey, buddies, Ghostbusters, why don't you come on down with us and help us out? There's a reason why, and again, I'm not just saying the Catholic Church is the only end-all, be-all of exorcism, but there is a reason why a priest spends X number of years with a exorcist, spends X number of years in Vatican, in church, to be trained to encounter or proctor such proceedings. Not because you're a self-proclaimed clairvoyant and self-proclaimed demonologist.
Well, I mean, in defense of Lorraine, supposedly she was studied by UCLA by some parapsychologists, and indeed the levels of her psychic abilities did register higher than normal. She was a light trance medium, and she had well above average psychic ability.
Here's my issue with this whole thing. Let's say she was, and let's say Ed is the businessman, the front man, whatever. Why is the spotlight on Ed? I don't hear too many accounts.
If you watch the movies, I mean, the spotlight's on her more than him.
The movies, but I want to hear the accounts of her. Like, why is he doing the exorcisms and not her?
Well, he's a demonologist. He's because the Catholic.
He's the clairvoyant. She's the clairvoyant. She's the one with the touch.
Yeah, but he's doing it because he's the one who. Because the priests aren't going to do it. The church. I think they're full of shit. In Parliament language, and we haven't even gotten to the fucking Connecticut. We haven't even gotten.
It might very well be that
into
she's the clairvoyant.
The Arnie Johnson thing, which we know that, hell, even in the movie, spoiler, it fucking failed. They failed to prove that he was possessed by a demon.
And that's exactly the title of the movie, which was the defense that he used, an unprecedented defense that the devil made me do it.
Yeah, and in real life, freaking the actual lawyer reached out to them, and no, the guy freaking went to jail.
Manslaughter, I believe the charge was.
It was,
so
it was come on.
So they have been on everybody's radar, especially in this supernatural world.
First-degree manslaughter, and sentenced 10 to 20 years prison. He served 5 for good behavior. There you go.
And by all accounts, living a normal life.
Yeah. And the haunted, you already mentioned you mentioned some of it. another damn good movie, which I was kind of shocked it did not mention the Warrens. You know,
See, it's like not mentioning it because of association, or like, hey, we can make a great movie without having to give tribute.
I think it's probably a couple of both. Maybe it's probably kind of something. Yeah, they probably didn't want to bring them involved and have them, be, you know, sounding board or whatever. So
For good or for bad, uh, they have paved the way for paranormal investigation, which, by the way, to man, make a self-loathing slight, it's like a dime a dozen now. Everyone and their mother doing paranormal investigations. You know, we have ourselves, but we're not, I think, to distinguish ourselves from others, we're not claiming to be clairvoyants. We're not claiming to be touched in that astral plane. We, like everybody else, is looking for some physical evidence, electromagnetism, aspiration, whatever, contact you want to call it. But it seems like, there's just a hotbed of paranormal investigations, especially with the rise of social media.
just and I don't mean to laugh, but just one. I know. We jumping back and forth, and just bear with us, guys. One last thing for the haunting in Connecticut, for the Snedeker House and or the haunting in Connecticut, whichever you want to call it. Paranormal investigator Benjamin Radford. Oh, well, I'm sorry. To paranormal investigator Garton, the horror author Ray Garton, which you mentioned before. He said of Lorraine, and I quote, "If she told me the sun would come up tomorrow morning, I'd get a second opinion," end quote. And that's pretty much all to say about that. Now, according to the Warrens and to what they've mentioned in the Haunted Connecticut, they did bless the house with a priest, and they did a rituale romano. I probably mangled that, but yeah, supposedly on that house, as well as the succubus thing, which was the Smurl.
But didn't they also mention
The house
that?
is quote unquote cleared there. So
Didn't they also mention that the um, so, so-called possessed boy, prior to any of this, had some mental illness issues working out?
Yeah.
So here's where honestly, it it would have been better served if somebody from a mental health profession,
Yeah, you said it before. I mean,
not Ed and Lorraine.
look, and I don't think that there were thieves or crooks, and I don't mean to smear the names after they're gone or whatever. It's just, and everyone who does paranormal research and paranormal investigation probably owes their careers to, right? Because they brought it to the forefront, and I'm pretty sure that you know what, maybe some of this stuff is real. I can't. You can't just deny that everything. Maybe some stuff is real and
Absolutely.
exaggerated. For effect. Because from what everyone says, from what I know, they didn't make a dime off the people. Again, supposedly. I mean, I can't verify or not. I obviously made money off the Conjuring for that. They were paid handsomely. So,
But
but
even before these movies, because Ed has passed away and Lorraine has passed away, their books and
yeah,
appearances,
they were
television,
yeah, they were successful at what they did.
it's a business.
I mean, I just think, hey, let's say out of 10, or out of 100%, what was truly real? What do you say? 30%? Do you say
Well,
20%?
all you really need is one.
Do you say 10%?
Well, there you have it, folks. We laid out for you some interesting tidbits, information, whatever you want to call it. You investigate for yourself. You tell for yourself. Um, what is a crying shame is maybe the church should come off with a little more vetted evidence books. I know they have their reasons not to, but have they done, or if there's a rebel priest out there that would like to tell all, it might shed some lights into what is real and what is not.
Or the bag of donuts, that we can get into. You know, if you guys want to hear our take on the church, I have a couple bottles of whiskey. We can get into that as well.
Okay, we'll save that for this episode, the end of the Dead Air Dudes.
All right. That being said, guys,
That's
this wasn't a knock on the Warren so much as it is we're trying to bring to light and and just bring news to you guys. You guys decide and let us know. As usual, I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka. Thanks. Stay safe out there and save the whales.